What's up, guys? Today I want to talk about E3 2018, I want to talk about the presentations, I want to talk about the conferences, and I want to talk about the games that were presented at them. I want to let you guys know how I feel about what I saw, and what kind of games I'm excited for in the future, what I kind of expect from some of the titles that were presented. This video is unscripted. Last year, Jay and I did an E3 kind of live stream that was a complete disaster, so I thought this year, let me just wait until I've kind of seen what I need to from the show and then get into discussing it for you guys in a format like this. I have a lot of stuff I want to cover, so I'm going to move incredibly fast. Let's get right into it. So I've been watching E3 every year since I was about 15, getting really into it. And I think the older I get, the less I kind of get absorbed by the whole hype hysteria of the experience, because you start to realize that more and more of these games will probably let you down, or they probably won't be worth the time. I mean, the older you get, the less and less time you have to play games. So rather than just being excited about everything you see, you kind of get a little bit more reserved. So going into E3 this year, look, I'm quite majorly a single player person. I play single player games. I like multiplayer stuff, but I find that as everything is slowly moving towards everything's either multiplayer or open world, my attachment to single player experiences is a whole lot stronger. That's kind of what I prioritize playing almost. So going into E3 this year, I was expecting, of course, more multiplayer games, more open world games, but I was also kind of hoping to see some more new IPs. I want to see new games, because so much of the stuff that we see seems to be sequels to other stuff, or reboots or remakes. I really just like to see new stuff. That being said, I was hoping to see some form of new iteration of Splinter Cell coming out of Ubisoft. That, of course, didn't happen. I've been talking about it for years. Perhaps next year. We probably preempted the whole thing because of the Splinter Cell edition to Ghost Recon Wildlands. They weren't testing the water and then going to kind of drop a game in like a couple of months later. It's going to be like a year, 2 years, I'd say, before they're even at that stage to have something to show us if they are indeed working on a Splinter Cell game. More than anything, I've been dying to see some Borderlands 3, but we knew that wasn't going to be at the show anyway. I only watched the live conferences for Square Enix, Ubisoft, and Sony, but I have caught up on the rest. I'm not going to be talking about Nintendo here at all, because as much as I'm always fascinated by the stuff that they are doing, I am not a Nintendo player at all, and I don't really have, anything major to say about that type of thing. Okay, so let's dive into Sony straight away. A very strange conference in terms of approach, kind of just focusing on those big four games and kind of selling them. Like, that was the main thing. Obviously, every game presentation at E3, they're trying to sell you the game. But Sony's was really trying to okay, here's what we have coming out. Please go and buy it. Please be interested. Rather than kind of dropping announcement after announcement after announcement, or kind of having the same flow that Microsoft's show did. Sony's very much felt like putting people in a room with investors and pitching to them. Anyway, they did open with The Last of Us. Of course, probably I feel like it's everyone's most anticipated game right now, at least if you're a Sony player. First up, Naughty Dog is unmatched when it comes to not only visuals, but that kind of storytelling that feels like, here's the interesting thing. As much as I've said every game seems to be multiplayer or open world these days, it's so fascinating that Sony's conference was completely focused on single player experiences. Obviously some of those are open world, but so focused on, while we've got games right now that are massive, like Fortnite, PUBG, you've got, still Call of Duty, all that stuff seems to be where the casual gamer is at. It's so fascinating to me that so many people are obsessed with a game like The Last of Us, where it's not that type of thing at all. It is completely like that demo they showed with just Ellie dancing with this chick, and that's what they're leading the conference with. I think that's a really special thing today, that Naughty Dog and Sony have tapped into something like that, where the story is what's special, where the story a game is telling is a special thing. And I really love that. That entire presentation was fantastic. Not only is that the best looking game I have ever seen, I mean, honestly, that just gorgeous. But the entire, once they actually got into the gameplay demonstration, obviously Naughty Dog has always as well been unmatched when it comes to animation. No one animates stuff as incredibly as they did, as they do. Ellie going prone, climbing under the truck, all the different combat things like the arrows getting dropped and her picking them up straight away, grabbing stuff in the environment, throwing it around, all that type of thing. I think what's so great about it as well is that you just know, with it being a Naughty Dog game, that is what the game is going to look like. Like, that is what you're going to get. They're going to keep, at least 90% of that stuff. Some of it may end up disappearing from the final build, but it's going to look like that. It's going to play like that. That is what is so exciting for me about The Last of Us. Then obviously going into Ghost of Tsushima, that was not only a beautiful demo. Sucker Punch, I was a fan of the last Infamous game, but it was supremely lacking in, I guess, world. The world didn't feel alive, and I feel like if they managed to tap into that here with this game, they're into something special. Again, visuals, particle effects, as well as kind of these environmental effects that were going on, the swirling leaves, all that type of thing just looked absolutely gorgeous. Water reflections, that was something they definitely nailed in Infamous, is they're one of the best studios when it comes to creative lighting. So that looked superb. What I really liked about actually seeing gameplay from it was that it seems to be slow, patient, and all about kind of flow. And not in the same way that, let's say like a Batman Arkham game's combat goes, where there's definitely an element of flow to that. Here it really felt like kind of controlling energy and controlling the flow of energy in combat. It's all very patient. I really, really enjoyed that demonstration. And while that game once again has that kind of God of War thing where it's an original game, I'm interested in it. It feels like it's taken so much from other games that's really readily apparent in the trailer, but the way it's been remixed and represented does feel entirely original. The Death Stranding demo, of course, gave more questions than answers once again, even though it did answer some questions that were previously raised. I love the walking simulator joke that's going on, but even if that is what it is, I'm totally down for it. Regardless of, I really enjoyed Metal Gear Solid 5. Despite the fact the story was really quite a bit of a mess, and the game was so bizarrely structured, it really was kind of a unique experience. So anything that Kojima does going forward, I am there for day one. So from that point of view, I'm definitely interested in how this thing goes. I like the fact that it doesn't look or feel like any game I have really seen before, and I think that's the thing. It feels like a unique experience from what I've seen, and that is what I'm here for. There was a short trailer for Control, which is the new game from Remedy. I'm interested in that, despite the fact the trailer didn't really give us much to go off in terms of what the game's about, what it's really going to be like. I mean, we saw it in action, but there wasn't kind of a demonstration that went along with it explaining anything about it. That is worth noting, that is in there. I'm keen to see what comes of that. The last thing that Sony presented was SpiderMan. And while I have an interest in that game, it's not the type of thing I'm going to be jumping on until there's reviews, despite the fact, it looks like a really good game. The thing is that there's something about the design of the world that I'm not quite sold on yet. There was a separate demo that I watched afterwards where, it was showing how the environment works, going around and doing, some side activities. And they looked like really padded side activities, like go here, destroy this, go here, collect this. And as far as an open world game goes, like, it looks like playing as Spider-Man is fun, but it kind of feels like it's running hot on the heels of the Arkham games without really adding much new just yet. So I have no doubt the game is going to be good, but until I have a reason other than, I need a really good reason to want to jump on board with that. And so far, everything I've seen about the story and about kind of the mission structure and design hasn't really done it for me just yet. Overall, Sony put up a streamlined conference with some incredible demos, but I think the entire event didn't really get me to lose my mind at any point. Like, despite how much I loved the Last of Us demo, how much I loved the presentation of Death Stranding, I didn't really kind of freak out over anything in the way that I have in previous years, where I was like, I might pass out, like the God of War announcement or even the God of War gameplay trailer from last year. Nothing really hit quite like that, and I think a lot of it was about the way they chose to present it. Anyway, moving on to Ubisoft, that was not a good presentation. Starting out with the weirdest Just Dance, I don't know even what that was, but it sucked. And then kind of padding so much of it out with DLC and with kind of expansion type things. It didn't really feel like an E3. It felt like a conference where they didn't really have anything to show. I kind of felt the entire time I was just praying for Dan Hay to run out and tackle someone and then announce Far Cry 6 being an RPG set in South America. Don't mind that. That's just a little fantasy of mine. I would absolutely love that being a thing. But they kind of just didn't feel like there was a whole lot to show. The Beyond Good and Evil 2 trailer was cool. I enjoyed that part of the presentation, the whole thing about getting the community to create, the art for inside the world and stuff. I think as much as that feels like a cheap way to cut corners, I actually think that's a really cool idea. It was a really well done trailer for sure. Can't really say I'm interested in that game though. The Division 2, again, this is an interesting one because they'd given up that game to show at the Microsoft conference. So they showed a cinematic trailer, and I just want to detour quickly to talk about why are we getting cinematic trailers for games after we've already had a gameplay demonstration? I understand that there's a lot of really excellent cinematic trailers that get done, and there was definitely some great ones at the show, but just give us more gameplay. Like, cinematic trailers like that should be for announcements, for game announcements, I think. Or for launch trailers where they kind of, I don't know if many games still do this, but if you leave it on the pause screen for long enough with some things, or like on the menu screen, it'll start playing the launch trailer. That stuff's cool. I dig that. But there was so many times at this show where we'd already seen gameplay for a game, and then they'd be like, here's our presentation of whatever coming up. And then they do a cinematic trailer, and I'm like, great, that doesn't teach me anything new other than give me a false perception of probably what the emotion is going to be like in the game. Because, certain things like, I remember the Division 1 did that with cinematic trailers, and you're like, cool, that's what the emotional experience of the game is going to be like, and then it was completely devoid of emotion. So I think there's a dishonesty in those cinematic trailers, and I don't think we need them for stuff we already have gameplay for. That being said, with the Division 2, I'm going to talk about the Microsoft demo in this chunk as well. The Division 1 had the best E3 premiere of any game ever for me. That first demonstration absolutely blew my mind as a 17-year-old. I thought that was incredible. Shame about the game not delivering on any of that, really. And I was really hoping it would. I feel like the Division 2, regardless of people like, don't trust what you see, blah, 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 all that type of thing. I get the reservation, and there's no reason not to be reserved. I think that's a better state to be in. But I don't see Ubisoft making the exact same mistakes twice. Obviously, Destiny kind of did that to a degree, or it had worse errors the second time round. They fixed some stuff and broke other stuff. But I don't see the Division 2 letting down in the same way. I don't see it being downgraded massively either. I don't see any of those kind of problems really sticking around. I really enjoyed the presentation. The interesting thing is, it just seems like the Division 1 done the way that it needed to be done the first time. Like, it doesn't really feel that different in any way other than the fact that, oh no, it's a second one, but it's just the first one with everything done correctly. Now, here's something interesting. The outright surprise of the show, my highlight of the show, I can't believe I'm saying this, was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I have been a fan of Assassin's Creed since the first game. And while I have skipped certain numbers within the franchise just because, I was attached to the Desmond story and then that was over, I played Black Flag. Unity obviously turned out to be a bit of a mess, so I skipped it. I skipped Syndicate. I played Origins for 10 hours and went, well, this is too fucking big with nothing to actually do in it. So I bailed on that one. Despite the fact that Odyssey is 2 times bigger than Origins, which is fucking stupid. I just want to point that's too big. That is too much content. There's going to be too much traversal time. That's what fucked me off in Origins, was you were just walking for ages with nothing to do. Just condense the fucking map. Condense it. That's where The Witcher succeeds. It's a big map, but you run into shit every 20 meters. But anyway, Odyssey. Everything about that I loved. Ubisoft finally has an RPG. This is what I've wanted from them for so long. I thought, why not take Assassin's Creed or Far Cry into the RPG territory? They've experimented with stuff, particularly in Far Cry with, picking which ending you want and stuff. It never feels right because it's not an RPG the entire time. Taking on that role here, This has really become like Ubisoft's, they're really trying to do a Witcher scenario with it, but I'm not even mad. If every game in the world copied The Witcher 3, we'd be in a good place. But yeah, with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, not only does it look incredible, I know the Greek setting, maybe it's because I'm running off the God of War high currently. Something about that Greek setting is going to give them a lot that they can do visually that kind of was absent in Origins. Origins is a great looking game, but they're very restricted in terms of colors, whereas Greek architecture and landscape allows for a lot more variation in that type of thing. The fact that you can choose to be a male or female protagonist that I'm sure is going to have quite a high degree of customization, I think is really cool. Really into that idea, as well as the branching dialogue options. The combat here already looks a lot better than it did in Origins. Origins doesn't feel like an Assassin's Creed game, put it this way. This doesn't feel like an Assassin's Creed game yet either. It may do, but something about it has already captivated me more than Origins did. Something about it feels, I don't know what it is, but this game really blew me away. Like, I was really stunned by what I saw in this presentation. And yes, I feel like Assassin's Creed has completely lost its identity by this stage. The fact that this is a game that's like, you know, they're no longer attached to a singular story. I'm kind of disappointed that they're coming out yearly again, or it looks like that's what they're going to do. But that way I can pick and choose which Assassin's Creed games I want. I passed on Origins, I'll be getting this one. The only thing I remember in the incredibly pointless presentation done by Square Enix was the Shadow of the Tomb Raider gameplay demo. This was a much better demonstration of the game than what we got at the Microsoft showing. That was a really messy gameplay trailer. This gameplay demo was outright, I thought it was incredible. I'm a huge fan of this rebooted franchise. I loved the first game. I really enjoyed Rise of the Tomb Raider despite it having some incredibly messy storytelling issues, but I think what I love so much about the franchise is that it doesn't feel like they're trying to take the thunder back that Uncharted stole from them. It really feels like they're doing their own thing. They're incredibly kind of sandboxy games with kind of like a checklist of stuff to do. They do feel like almost more survival type games. Something about just playing them, I really enjoy the setup. It looks like they're going to continue that here. A lot of the same stuff, just some, you know, cool new additions. I do hope they kind of fix the animations up. I've always liked the fact that the animations aren't completely fluid, but at the same time, you know, you could do that. You could make them flow better. But again, mechanics here look fantastic. I don't know, I'm 90% sure I saw Lara cover herself with mud as part of like something that you can actively do to camouflage, which if that was what I saw, that is incredible. I'm just hoping the game has a good story with a good villain. I love the setting, I love the concept, I just hope it can deliver. So Bethesda showed a handful of stuff that I wasn't particularly interested in. I don't really have any interest in Doom Eternal. I thought the previous game, from what I've kind of seen and played of it, was fun, but it's not really my thing because of the lack of story. We all knew that Elder Scrolls 6 was going to get announced, so the trailer didn't really have that whole like bring the house down, oh my god, they're doing Elder Scrolls 6. Didn't really have that effect. Both because the trailer for it was just, oh, it was like a blah, it's a thing. But it also kind of, you know, we just knew it was happening, so it wasn't really that much of a big deal. It wasn't kind of like a massive surprise in the same way that, you know, like, oh, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a thing. You know, a long-awaited sequel like that. It was just like, hello, this thing you already knew was definitely happening is happening. That is definitely popping up on next-gen consoles. I liked what I saw of Metro 2033. What I think is interesting is it feels like the version of Fallout for people who want a more focused version of Fallout, because obviously there was the showing of Fallout 76, which again sounds too big. I'm not sure how I feel about the online type thing. Fallout 4 was too big anyway, like that game was huge, so making a game that's 4 times bigger than that just sounds, to be honest, fucking unnecessary. Like, I don't know how much time you guys have on your hands, but I don't want to be pumping like 600 hours into a game to kind of feel like I've got the full experience. Like, I like to get my money's worth when I play a game. I like to do everything. Some of these games are just too big to do that, and I hate the feeling that I'm missing stuff. I don't know, that's just a personal thing for me. Fallout 76 looks really good. I really like the look of it. They're getting better and better with their world design, with their color. It's all continually on the up and up. I just think that game is just sounding way too big, despite the fact I really love what I'm seeing of it. I'd almost rather go and play the new Metro game, which is offering a similar type kind of scenario, similar type world, obviously still very different games, but it's going to be a more focused kind of story-driven approach to that, very much about the atmosphere, whereas Fallout's definitely like gameplay, so much to do. So I think, if I'm weighing up between those two, I don't know how many other people out there would get in that same situation, but I'm definitely leaning more towards Metro right now. Now I'm just going to group EA and Microsoft together to discuss the few things that I have left over. Gears 5, that was a great trailer, a great demonstration, despite the actual scene that they showed not being that interesting. It just kind of felt like your standard action movie, didn't really have anything interesting in the way. I mean, like, if you look at going back to The Last of Us, there's something about the way that that's shot, which is weird talking about games in like cinematic kind of terms, but this is where we're at. The Last of Us really has this beautiful design and way it's shot, whereas Gears of War was very much like, here's some buff dudes standing around talking about stuff, which is a bit dry in terms of direction. But what they showed of the game, of the gameplay, I loved it so much that I just realized I've got a new PC that can handle current gen games. I went and downloaded Gears 4 straight away because I do want to play that. I'm a big fan of the Gears franchise, and I was like, well, I really want to play 5 at some point, so I better play 4. That's a good sign that the demo did something, good for me. It definitely did. I'm definitely interested in that game and seeing where it goes. Just really love the fact that Gears is constantly getting brighter, more colorful. Definitely understanding that you can nail the tone, the atmosphere, the style and the gameplay of the world, while also making things visually interesting, visually kind of complex and exciting and fresh. I still don't know how to feel about Anthem. Everything that I've seen just doesn't make it look like that much of an interesting game, to me, to be honest. And it's also EA, so I just see so much going, wrong with it, and there's nothing really, I like the idea, I like the concept, but something about it feels really Mass Effect Andromeda-y, if that's not a word, but it is now. And I don't really feel like, I've been presented with anything yet. I mean, it looks fantastic, it looks like it's fun to play, but I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, it looks fantastic and it looks fun and it's fun to play for about 2 days at this stage. So I may be proved wrong on that. I would like to be proven wrong, but currently I'm not feeling it. Battlefield 5, why did they present it before E3? That bothers me. Just announce the game at E3, show your cinematic trailer, show your gameplay, do it all in one hit, get people fired up at the show. I just prefer that they announce stuff at the show because it gets people way more into it, way more excited. I'm keen for that game, despite the fact that I kind of just wish they go back to the modern stuff. Because I'm a Battlefield person over a Call of Duty person, and I think that if you just stick to current day, you can have your weapon attachments, your mods that you can't get in games like Battlefield 1. I thought that game was really, as much as I love it, was really stripped back in terms of customization and kind of options, I guess. But I'm completely here for Battlefield 5. It's the type of game I'll probably buy, play it for a week or two, maybe a month if it's good enough, and then I'll kind of take it back and swap it for something else. I just don't play multiplayer games for much longer than a couple of weeks. I also don't know if it's just me, but Just Cause 4 looks exactly like Just Cause 3. I played a bit of Just Cause 3, I had fun, but those games, something about them feels so like dated, or like it's from another time. And not in a good way either, not in it's like capturing something that, no other game is doing. It's not even doing a fantastically like amazing job of it. It's just completely okay. I really want to be able to say like I'm keen on Just Cause 4, but it just looks like more of the same, which I don't know if there's any Just Cause fans out there who want to, correct me on that, please do so. But it just looks so bland. The announcement trailer for Halo Infinite definitely caught my attention. I really liked the way they approached that trailer. It's very ambiguous. It definitely gives the sense that, hey, is this going to be an open world game? What I liked about it was that it felt like it captured the original Halo really well in that trailer, at least. And obviously a trailer is designed to sell you something, so we won't know for sure, and obviously we don't want to trust trailers too much after Halo 5, but I would be interesting to see if this game moves in an open world direction. I think that Halo is a series that could really benefit from that, and there is a lot that you could do with that type of movement. So that would be incredibly interesting, but there really is not a lot for us to go off based on just that trailer. I hope that this Halo game is everything that the franchise needs and everything that fans want it to be. I'm not a Halo player anymore. I haven't been since the Xbox 360, where I finished up with Halo Reach. I finished up with Bungie's last game, but I do hope that this kind of brings Halo back to where I think it deserves to be, because it really is one of it's a long time running franchise that I also consider to be one of the best, and it deserves to kind of regain that kind of that pedestal that we used to hold it to. So I would like to see it succeed in every way. The last game that I want to talk about is my most anticipated game. You know, I guess by default, because it's by CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk 2077. The trailer was good. Like, the trailer didn't blow me away, but I think everything about what is presented within it, if you kind of pay attention to what you're seeing about the world, what you're seeing about the situations, you know, this is a sci-fi game by the guys who made The Witcher 3. That is all you need. I mean, I'd just buy the game day one without even having seen a single trailer, without even knowing what it was about. I just know it's by them. I'm going to buy it. So, you know, I really liked what I saw. Again, they're a studio who just goes, you know, must look at other games and go, hey, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. They just take shit from everywhere and then do it better than everyone else. I really liked at the end of the trailer, you know, you're definitely getting, there's going to be some Deus Ex vibes in this, but I really liked the fact they made a point of the car at the end of the trailer. I don't know what kind of confirmation there is about that yet, but I feel like they're going to go for very much like a Mad Max type thing with that, with, you know, this is your vehicle, you get to customize it, you get to upgrade it. Again, that would be so cool if they kind of took that concept and expanded on it, as long as the car doesn't control like Roach did in The Witcher. So yeah, even though Cyberpunk is my most anticipated game overall, it wasn't my game of the show. If I'm looking at my favorite presentation that I saw, I feel like the fair thing to do would be to give that to The Last of Us, which is probably my second most anticipated game. I really love that demonstration. It is one of the better demonstrations I've ever seen at E3, but the game that really stole it for me was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It went from being a game that I was not even mildly interested in to being something that I'm outright like, you know, unless reviews are terrible, day one I'm gonna get it. And that is a good sign for me of a good demonstration. Overall, this year's E3 was underwhelming, I thought. And I think that that is a combination of not only the fact that the older I get, the less and less games there are that I'm interested in or would actively want to buy, but also the fact that we are really winding down right now on this console generation cycle. We're gonna slowly start moving into the next generation, and I feel like all these studios, all these publishers are reserving their announcements for the new consoles, because now we're just wrapping up with the final few games that we've got left, you know what I mean? Like, we've got all of the ones that were shown here, more or less. I'm pretty sure all of them are going to come out on the current gen consoles, so there's definitely a sense of we're kind of waiting to move through all of these ones, and then in end of 2019, 2020, whenever it happens to be, we're going to get announcements of new consoles. That E3 is going to be fucking lit. That shit is going to go off. It's going to be mental. But in the meantime, we're just kind of working through what we have left. So guys, those are my thoughts on E3 2018. I'm keen to hear what you guys thought, not only of this video, but of the showing. What games are you most excited for? What is your game of the show? If you've watched this whole video and haven't subscribed to Breaking Banter just yet, you should hit the subscribe button and do so to see more stuff like this. You can also check us out on Twitter and Instagram, and if you're a big fan of the channel and you want to support us further, you can pledge to our Patreon to help hold this whole thing together. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.